Okay, today we're going to read Trying to Stop a Killer to Young Victims. So, as we read today, I want you to think like a scientist. Pretend like you've discovered what really caused the flu. Later, I'm going to ask you to help me write, from a scientist's point of view, any advice that you would give people. Okay. Trying to Stop a Killer. In 1918, there were no medicines to fight the flu and few medicines that could help patients with the terrible symptoms. There weren't even enough doctors and nurses in the United States to treat everyone. Many had been shipped to Europe to help wounded soldiers. Often, people used home cures to treat or prevent flu infections. These included stuffing salt up one's nose and eating onions at every meal. Most of these treatments, however, did not work. Let's take a look at this newspaper article here. Why catch the influenza? You need not. Just carry Forminant with you and suck these delicious tablets whenever you are in danger of being infected by other people. Suck at least 4 to 5 times a day, says Dr. Hopkirk in his standard work. Influenza, for the Forminant we possess is the best means of preventing the infective process, which, if neglected, may lead to serious complications. Again, you can read the whole thing, but it says attacks germs before they attack you. Okay? So, and then it says in 1918, this 1918 ad tried to convince people that a germ-killing tablet called Forminant could prevent them from getting the flu. Unfortunately, the tablets didn't work. And I know from experience, the flu is still around. It went on and on. And I've never heard of these tablets, so I can infer that if they had worked, the flu would have ended and we would have heard about them. Okay. In public, people threw buckets of water and disinfectant on sidewalks to kill germs left from people spitting. Many people in the United States wore cloth face masks. They thought the mask would stop them from breathing in flu germs. Little did they know that the flu viruses are so small that they can pass through cloth. This really reminds me of COVID here because we did the same thing, right? Especially in the beginning, before people could get like the hospital type of mask, people wore whatever they could wear on their face, right? And I saw a lot of people using a ton of different kinds of disinfectant. Everything was to be disinfected before it came into the house, right? So, take a look here. I'll read this. I'm going to go back. It says, the sign warns people not to spit because they might spread the deadly flu. Right? The man on the right is not being allowed on the streetcar because he's not wearing a face mask. Okay? Sounds familiar with getting into buildings and stuff with COVID. Some local governments passed laws to help stop the spread of the flu. New Yorkers caught coughing or sneezing without covering their mouths could get a year in jail and a $500 fine. So we see doctors and nurses wearing masks to protect themselves today. If we know they don't work, why do they bother to wear them? If they don't work, do they use a different kind of mask? What do you think? Okay. Reminders of death and disease. Many cities in the United States closed schools, churches, and other places where people could get infected with the flu. Still, more people got sick. Signs of death and disease were everywhere. Many Many families hung crepe paper on their front doors to honor a relative who had died. Theaters, such as this one in Seattle, Washington, were closed to prevent the spread of disease. Like our movie theaters were closed too. How could a theater cause the flu to spread? Germany was the main country the United States was fighting against in World War I. As a result, many Americans believed an untrue rumor that Germans were spreading flu germs in the United States on purpose. Remember, we were talking about how they hung paper to honor a relative who died. So, unfortunately, there were not enough coffins or grave diggers to keep up with the dead. A body sometimes lay in a house for days, causing an awful smell. In some areas, drivers took horse-drawn wagons to homes to pick up dead bodies. Healthy people were terrified. Who would be next to get sick? Even those who do not get very ill could spread the flu. Some were too afraid to go to the store, talk to their neighbors, or even leave their homes. Again, this brings back a lot of memories of people being afraid to go places. In Philadelphia, so many people died from the flu that the dead were buried in mass graves. Let's read young victims. Usually, most people who die from influenza are very Let me read that again. Usually, most people who die from influenza are very young children or the elderly. Their bodies are often not strong enough to fight the disease. The victims of the 1918 flu strain, however, were different. Half of them were healthy people in their 20s or 30s. The deaths of many young adults meant that there were fewer people left to do the daily work. Garbage went uncollected. Mail wasn't delivered. Many businesses failed. These women in Ohio are feeding children whose families are too sick with the influenza to take care of them. It says the deaths of many young adults due to the 1918 flu left countless children without one or both parents. Imagine that. Thankfully, that was not so much the case with COVID. So the flu affected people who didn't even have it. Why? No one knows exactly why the 1918 flu killed so many young adults. Surprisingly, some scientists believe that it was because young people have strong immune systems. The body's immune system may have overreacted to the flu virus, causing the body to fight too much and destroy its own cells. As a result, the immune system ended up harming the body rather than helping it. So let's look up immune system in the glossary. Okay, so it says the systems that bodies use to protect themselves from harmful germs such as viruses that can cause diseases. They include white blood cells and antibodies. So, the stronger you were, the more risk there was that you would get the flu. That's an example of what we call irony. So, irony is when things turn out exactly the opposite of how you would expect them to. So let's add irony to our map here. Give me a second to try to figure out how to adjust this with the camera here. Let me just put it right here. Okay. So the stronger a person was, the more likely they were to get really sick because their immune system would overreact. Okay. Down the bottom here it says workers who came in contact with a lot of sick people, such as police officers and mail delivery people, had a high chance of getting the flu. We're going to stop here.